Thank you. Welcome to the board meeting of September 22nd, 2020 for the town of Upton. We're going to call the meeting to order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Upton are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. So today's agenda will include approval of minutes. We'll be opening the public hearing when Brian returns from the planning board meeting. We have a DPW feasibility committee application, a discussion of the EDC revitalization, for lack of a better word, an intermunicipal agreement with Northbridge regarding a conservation agent, and then reviewing the special town meeting warrant, and then a discussion on the town meeting quorum, as well as recognition and a town manager report. So with that, I think we will just start with the DPW Feasibility Committee volunteer application. Derek or Sandy, do you want to just let us know if we've got a opening, what the opening is? And we see Jonathan's or Mr. Moan's application, so I don't know if Steve and or Maureen will have questions. So Sandy or Derek, how long is the term, and is there an open seat?
There is one open seat, and it would be for 1 year until the next appointments, because it's after appointment season. So It'll be through June.
Okay. Any questions, Steve or Maureen, regarding Jonathan's application?
I was just going to recommend that we thank the previous person that served in that role. I don't recall their name. Sandy, I don't know if you may have the name of the person that stepped away from that DPW feasibility committee.
It is Peter Castanino. Peter Castanino.
Okay, so we thank him for his efforts. I have the applicant and the application in front of me. I don't have any questions for Mr. Moan.
No questions for me either.
Okay, great. I will take a motion.
I make a motion that we appoint Mr. Jonathan Moan to the DPW Feasibility Committee for a term of 1 year, or for the remainder of the 1 year term. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. That's unanimous action. Sandy, thank you. And next we have the proposed EDC composition and charge. I think that I'm hoping that Steve, you and Maureen had a chance to look at this. I know we've got Dave Ross here as well. I can't see, I don't see Jean Burnett here, but Dave, I guess you'll speak to this for the EDC.
Yeah, that's right. I can speak to it. So do you want me to give a brief?
Yeah, that would be great. Just sort of let us know what you guys did, why, and etc.
Yeah, so I think there's two different things we have on here for tonight. One is the size or composition of the committee, and then the second thing is the charge of the committee. So the current EDC met, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, to talk about a recommendation to give to the board. So currently the EDC is comprised of 5 full members and 1 alternate. We are down a full member at the moment. We had somebody who did not renew, so we have an opening for that. At the same time, we've or the board has disbanded the RFP committee, and we do have some members of that committee who are interested in continuing to help out. So we felt the best course of action was to have a 7-member committee with no alternates. And part of that thinking was we had both the alternate on the EDC and on the RFP committee, and they both actively participated. I think they felt like they were regular members. I don't necessarily want to speak for them. I see Michelle's here. She was the alternate, or is the alternate on the EDC, so she could chime in. But at the end of the day, they don't get to vote. So they are missing that one piece. So to make it so everybody is an equal full member, we figured going to 7 full members made sense. And we believe there's enough interest between both the EDC, the RFP, and other members of the community in what's going on that we think we could fill all 7 of those slots. The other thing that we put on there, we didn't make it a requirement, but we put strong preference to have a member of the Historic Commission be included, because as you all know, there's a lot of historic buildings in the downtown area. And then that we should see if we can get a member of planning to be involved in it. The reason we're not making either of those required is, although we may have interest today, there was concern that 2-3 years from now, what if there isn't interest from those committees, but we have interest from other people in the community that wanted to serve. So it was more of, it'd be really nice to have representation from those committees, but we didn't make it mandatory. So our suggestion for composition, 7 full members with preference for 1 slot for historic and 1 slot for planning. And then the next thing we talked about was the charge of the committee, which I think you all had that in front of you. And we were trying to find a way to have a broad charge that can carry us for an extended period of time. The committee was formed in 2018, so 2 years ago, and we've already pretty much completed 2 of our 3 main items that we were tasked with. So instead of having very specific items, we felt it was better to have broad items that we will continue to work on, maybe in perpetuity is the wrong term, but for an extended period of time. That it's not just a hit list that we do 1 item. So our thinking on that was working on the town center, which we talked about in a previous meeting, that the EDC would take over and kind of maintain that and implement what the vision relates to that. We felt it was important to continue to recognize that we should work on all of economic development across the town and not just be on the town center in case an opportunity was to arise somewhere else in town. We're actively looking to bring in a new town planner part-time. So this committee to work with that town planner economic coordinator and to help maintain and streamline doing business in Upton, being the 3rd one. And then the 4th one was to kind of stay on top of trends out there. So as we all know, a year ago, who would have ever thought like work from home and Zoom and GoToMeeting were such big things. So we feel this is the committee to kind of be paying attention to say, what's the next emerging trend? And does that trend make sense economically in the vision for Upton? So, an emerging trend may be new asphalt plants. Well, that doesn't make sense for Upton. But if there's some type of new co-working space, maybe that is something that we should be at the forefront of trying to help and drive towards town. So that's kind of our second recommendation is on the charge. We understand these are recommendations and we serve at the behest of the board. So, we look for your support, but we're open to questions, comments, if there's modifications we want to discuss.
Yeah, I think thanks for that. In terms of the number, I think, we all share a bias towards less is more, but given the interest in this committee, as well as all the activity that's going on downtown and the amount of attention that's going to require over the next, I would say, at least couple of years, depending upon how the market goes to put things together down there. with the redevelopment, with the project that's going to be the state project that's going through to sort of redesign the intersection, potentially put in a rotary, the buildings, the historic buildings, the RFP. So there's a lot that's sort of rolled into that. So to me, if that's what you guys are recommending, I certainly would support moving to 7, full voting members. And then separately, I think we can talk about the charge. So Steve, more thoughts on the configuration or makeup of the board. And I think if we can sort of agree to that, make a motion on that, and then separately adopt or modify the charge. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me, and I believe that they're headed in the right direction by expanding the area for economic development, not just looking at the downtown at this time. I think a 7-member board would be great with different expertise, and I would be willing to go forward with what Dave is projecting.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this numerous occasions. I think even back in April, May, we had a discussion about this, and I think moving to 7 members, that's pretty straightforward. I'm certainly in agreement there. The only thing that I'm thinking where we have interest, and with a 7-member committee, I think we should keep that alternate position. Again, we have that feeling, or at least I'm hearing from you folks and others around town that, members of that RFP committee do want to serve. We're not going to be able to take everybody. Obviously, we're going to lose some people. But I think keeping that alternate is kind of important in the sense that, again, we're living through COVID, so we don't know what's going to happen with people's personal time obligations, health cautions, and things of that nature. I understand we're on Zoom meetings and whatnot, but again, I like the 7-member upgrade, but I would be in favor of keeping that alternate position to just include. It will include one other person.
What are your thoughts on?
I would think with 7 people. Oh, sorry, you're breaking up.
Steve, you're breaking up. I don't know if it's just me or can everybody else hear Steve okay?
Everybody else hear me okay? Sandy? Okay. It must be your computer, Brett. But in any event, that would be the only caveat.
Yeah, it's me. Go
It
ahead.
would be helpful to try to keep that alternate space. Again, I think absenteeism, especially with a 7-member board, I think it's going to be difficult. You're going to have some absenteeism, so I think that would be an additional seat. We see it across multiple boards, whether it's DPW feasibility, the library committee, whatever. You always see members that unforeseen are forced to step away from a committee. So I think it's a good stepping stone position for somebody to serve in that role and then very easily move up to a full-time member of the committee.
To the chair, Michelle Antonelli, may I speak?
Not yet. Go ahead, Maureen.
I believe with a 7-member board, there is not a necessity for an associate member. I mean, 7 members, it's unlikely that 3 or 4 of them are going to be absent, or 2 of them even. And if so, then you have an odd number, which would be all right. I wouldn't agree with an associate member. Just go forward with just a 7-member board or committee.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel too strongly about it. It does seem like because the 7 members, you still if somebody is absent, you can still hold a vote, because what's a quorum on a 7-member board? Is it just 5?
It would be 4.
It's 4. So okay, so by creating a 7-member board, you're basically addressing that issue if somebody's going to be absent or what have you. Okay. So I think that I'm not sure, Dave, how many people from the RFP committee wanted to come over onto the, right? Because there's a couple of people moving off of the EDC. I thought. I'm just trying to see where we are in terms of numbers, because obviously we want as many people to participate as possible. Of course, we have lots of boards and committees around town, so that's the other thing. But
yeah, my understanding is, well, I served on both, so I'm not counting myself.
Yeah,
that at least 2 other members have already applied for the EDC from the RFP committee. So it's an addition of 2, and we already had an opening on EDC. So if we went from the 5 and alternate up to 7, we would have 3 full-time positions available.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm inclined to. I was an alternate on the zoning board in Northbridge for a long time, and it was fine. But I wish I had always had a vote. So to me, the vote matters. But I could go either way. What was the conversation, Dave, from the EDC? Did they feel strongly that that was an encumbrance or just a preference?
I think it was a preference. We did have some conversation on it, and like I said, I don't want to speak for Michelle. She's here. She was our alternate. I know on the RFP committee, Steve Johnson was our alternate, and he was surprised at one point to realize that when we were all there as a committee that his vote didn't count, and he was actively participating in the whole process. And that's what I took away from it was, here's somebody who actively participated 98% of the way through. And then when we came down to a vote, and luckily on the RFP committee, we didn't really have any close votes. Everything was pretty much unanimous. But if we had something close, you're actively participating and you don't, at the end of the day, you don't get to actually vote on everything you work towards. So we thought, myself and some other members of the committee, I don't want to say everybody felt this way, that, this was, as we push for inclusion and transparency, everybody would be the same on the committee. So, I do understand the alternate, and it's nice to have that. And if we have interest, but maybe until we get all the applications in, to actually see that we have that level of interest, it would be good. But
okay. Michelle, you were the alternate. You're here. Just describe the experience. Was it good, bad, indifferent? What's your sort of recommendation, having served in that role?
So I actually have several things to say, but as far as serving in the role as an alternate, just to refresh everybody's memory, I was appointed as an alternate because there were 2 committee members that were not going to be available for a prolonged period of time. So there was concern about a quorum. With the RFP committee, there was an alternate appointed because there was so much interest that the BOS didn't want to discourage people, and they knew that there was a lot of work to be done in a short period of time. Personally, I always felt, as Dave was sort of describing, very involved. I never, regardless of what happened at the time of voting, my opinion was always welcomed. And I don't think that the Board of Selectmen serves itself well by discouraging anybody who is even willing to serve as an alternate. So if you had 4 people that were interested in 3 seats and you appointed 3, I would strongly advise that you offer the alternate position. There's nothing to be lost there. And I understood my role and whether or not I could vote at any given meeting. So I felt fully a part of the committee, and that's my experience. So I don't think you should be discouraging participation. I do want to speak to the composition committee, and it's important that you hear this because the preference for somebody from the historical commission, not key, not super important anymore, because the vision has already been developed by the townspeople, which includes historical look and historical consideration. If you were going to pick a preference for somebody, I would say Disability Commission, and of course serving that role. It sounds a little self-serving, but certainly the disability needs are far beyond just, in this community, far beyond just meeting code. It's really about moving from meeting the minimum standard to incorporating and welcoming people with disabilities. the last part that I think is key
Are you-
for the board.
Michelle?
This is the legal issue part, Brett. You might want to hear this.
Well, I have a question. I have a question first.
Okay.
Are you speaking as a citizen or as a member of the EDC? I'm just
You asked me
Dave,
for my,
Dave,
so you,
Dave,
so you
Dave-
asked me for my opinion.
I asked for your. I asked. Well, no, Dave shared the update from the EDC,
Right.
and then I asked for your experience as an alternate member. So I just
Correct.
want to make sure that we're staying on track here with the agenda. So is this public comment or something different?
So I think actually this last piece would be considered a point of order. And it has to do with, so the first part about the alternate experience was speaking as a member of the EDC. The historical piece and the disability piece are speaking as a citizen. And the last part is pretty key, and that has to do with the fact that I believe in setting up a preference or requirement to have a member of the planning board be a part of the EDC, that you're actually setting up a potential conflict of interest under MGL Part 4, Title 1, Chapter 268, Section 21A. And that is that a person who is serving on the EDC and working with businesses and members of the public that may have business before the planning board, in effect, the person who's on the planning board would be negating their ability to rule on any situations or issues that that business might have before them. So that's just
pretty common, right? They would just have to recuse themselves. So that's not an uncommon scenario.
Well, it's more than recusal. Just to be clear, they could be acting as an agent by serving on the EDC,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that's a different
Great.
thing altogether.
Okay, thank you. So I'm inclined to go with the 7-member board and not have an alternate. It doesn't seem to me that adds value when you've got a board that already has 7 people on it. I do think that there are several other boards and committees that have openings. It's not unlike what we've done with other applicants to other boards where we've said, hey, you know what? This board's full, or there's not a seat on this board. We're not sure if that's going to be the case with the EDC, but certainly there are lots of boards and committees to serve on. So I'm not at all concerned about the degree to which we've invited the public to participate in their local government. And I feel like having the alternate member would just, add an extra burden to trying to fill these seats and also take up somebody's time and capacity that could otherwise be serving on another board. So with that, I'll take a motion. Or Maureen, you have a question?
No, I have a comment that maybe we could just open it up for applications. You have 2 applications already, Dave?
My understanding is, 2 members from the RFP committee have already submitted.
So can we open it up for a week or 2 weeks? What would be our recommendation, Derek?
I think it's been open for a while. Sandy, how many applications do we have so far?
There are 3, Mr. Chairman, there are 3 applications to my knowledge submitted to
3. Okay.
to the office. Yeah.
Okay, so they could all
Okay.
have stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean that's.
So it has been open for application, correct?
Yeah, and we've been holding off on making the appointments until we figured out whether we were going to have a 7 or 5-member board.
Then I would make a motion to move to have the 7-member board on the EDC committee. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I just wanted to clarify the motion. Are we or aren't giving preference to those other 2 committees? I guess that would be, before I second the motion, I just want to understand, those seats are just open seats. We do or do not, for filling those positions, do we or don't we give preference to those other 2 committees?
My understanding from the EDC is that they want us to give a preference, but that they don't want to have that as part of the sort of formal composition, so that if in the future we don't want or we don't have participation or interest from the planning board or others, that we would still want to be able to staff the board. But Dave, do you want to just clarify that to make sure we're understanding the EDC recommendation?
Because if I could just finish that thought for just a minute, I would just say that I, for one, would not be in favor of including a planning board member. I don't want to have too much. I really want to have that committee focus on townwide business, not get pigeonholed into downtown. And I feel like, now if you're trying to bring in a planning board member, I'm not in favor of that.
Okay. Go ahead, Maureen. Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I think if we just make it 7 and call it a day, we're good. But Maureen, go ahead, please.
No, just to Steve's comment about making it just downtown. I think if you read the proposition, economic development, and the composition, and that would be that they are going to expand through the town to include other areas of town. So it's not going to be pigeonholed just to the downtown. And I would make the motion to move forward with the 7-member board. And we have 3 applications, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And to accept that.
Okay. So let's,
Maureen to an LI.
Go ahead, Steve. You're on mute.
Second, the motion to modify the committee to a 7-member board. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye. So that'll be unanimous action. Thank you. And now we can talk about the charge that was recommended. So there were four points for that charge that I saw, and I think it looked good. I liked the positioning. I liked sort of the ordering because it did put the emphasis on the town center vision. A few minor things that I would like to see changed, or at least have a discussion with the EDC about, Dave.
Okay.
One is, and I think this probably applies in a couple of places, but there's places where you talk about sort of having things approved, or let's see, consistent with the town center vision. And so I thought that using the language or using the master plan, even though it's from 2005, as a touchstone, as a reference document to say, hey, if we're evaluating businesses or opportunities or growth or new revenue sources or what have you, that they be held against that 2005 master plan as a touchstone and as a reference point. And I think that applied in item 2 and item 4. And then also talking about anything that needs to be any changes.
Correct. We took off the applications.
Oh, sorry. Did I miss that?
No, I'm sorry.
Are you talking to us?
Mostly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So that would be the only thing, is just updating the points of reference for a couple of these. I don't know, Maureen, Steve, if you have other questions or changes that you'd want to bring to them. And Dave, are these changes that you can make, or would you want to sort of go back and forth and bring these to the EDC? And because I think that you said that they approved these, right?
Yeah, I mean, we approved this as our recommendation. So, the board here can just accept this recommendation. You can modify it or you can throw it out. We serve at the best of the board. So I think making reference to the master plan is fine. I do think most of us can probably agree that master plan is going to need updating soon. It's now approaching 15 plus years of age, but that's a major undertaking and somewhat of an expensive undertaking. So, my only concern would be, we all have smartphones now. There weren't smartphones in 2004, right? So, a lot can change and stuff. So I'm not 100% familiar with the master plan, but I'm guessing there isn't anything in there that would be hamstrung by from that. at at its existing age.
I totally agree that we don't want to hamstring the EDC. I would also offer that a 15-year-old master plan is quite an old master plan. There's been a lot of talk of redoing it. I think several current and potential selectmen have been advocating for that. So that's something I think if we have a town planner, that they might help lead a charge like that. That said, I think Derek and I were talking, we've been around for 285 years, 275 years. So in some sense, the 15 years isn't so long. So I guess it depends how we look at it. But I think, so Sandy, is the best way to email specific changes? Is it to talk about them now? Because I mean, I have the wording that I would recommend, but I also, Steve, Maureen, why don't we talk about your changes and then figure out the best way to make them if we want to do it now, or make changes offline and then come back and approve it in a subsequent meeting.
I would prefer to go through it all again and see if there's any changes that I want to request.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it'd be best to talk about this. I don't think we're going to resolve it tonight. I think this is something that we're going to have to kind of work our way through a little bit. Take for instance, charge number 3. Short term, as far as I know, and as far as what the board has discussed in the past, I mean, at this point, we don't plan on hiring a town planner until we get through this pandemic. So, I mean, I don't think that's something that we would need to have included in this particular charge. I also look as my town planner more attached to my planning board and not really attached to my EDC. That's kind of how I look and envision that particular role in town. So that's something that I wouldn't be in favor of having that included.
Yeah.
And, again, I know I made the comment earlier about the committee being pigeonholed. Item 2 should really be number 1 on that list. Our EDC should be outreaching and really looking for those small business opportunities and welcome them into Upton. That really's got to be job 1. As much as, we're all excited about the town center vision, in the short run, we've got to make sure we're winning those small battles and not having those small businesses go elsewhere. So, that would be something I'd be looking to do, is move number 2 to number 1. I'd want to eliminate number 3. Things of that nature. And Brett, I'd be curious as far as what you have for a rough draft, what you'd like to include. So that may be something that we have to revisit.
Yeah, so that's good. Let me be more specific, because I think that's good. We'll have to talk a little more about this, because I think that, I guess we can amend the charge at any time in terms of a town planner, because I do expect that any town, if we did go with a part-time town planner, they clearly would be aligned with the planning board. I mean, there's no doubt about that. That's their job. This, I think, is just talking about creating a process, and that the town plan, basically assigning it to a town planner, as opposed to saying that the EDC would do it. But I hear what you're saying, that we don't have a town planner, so it would be moot until such time. On the second one, on number 2, we talk about focus on attracting and retaining businesses, provide goods and services desired by the residents. And it says, as defined in the 2019 Town Center Visioning exercise and subsequent studies. And I would change that with focus on attracting and retaining businesses consistent with the latest master plan, which is 2005, and the 2019 Town Center Visioning exercise, just because I feel like the master plan was a more comprehensive public discussion, dialogue, hearing, even though the visioning session was very significant. Having that master plan as a touchstone, I think, is very important, and not having it superseded by the visioning exercise. So considering both of those. And then also number 4, the EDC shall be proactive in identifying new opportunities and trends that may benefit the town and are consistent with the town's economic interest. I said consistent with the town's latest master plan, which is the 2005 one. So rather than talking about pure economic interests, it really is using that master plan and the goal for business growth and development as outlined in that master plan as the guideposts for the types of businesses that we want to attract. So those were some of the changes that I was thinking about. But go ahead, Maureen.
Well, I was just wondering if we had any plan to update the master plan from 2005 to say 2021. I mean,
What Derek and I have always talked. Yeah.
I don't agree with going along with the 2005 master plan because it is outdated. And I think it should be up to standards today.
So each of these says master plan, and I have like currently 2005, and it says latest master plan. So obviously, if we redo the master plan, then that would supersede the 2005 master plan. I agree that it's very much time to revise that. There's no doubt about it. So I 100% agree with you. And what Derek and I have always talked about was that, that's something that a town planner can help drive and facilitate, because there's a lot of work. There's multiple boards, there's multiple public hearings and workshops, and there's a very formal and structured process, as you know, Maureen, required to complete a master plan. And you really need somebody with the bandwidth and expertise to facilitate that process. And so it's either a question of waiting for a town planner and allowing them to facilitate the process for what we're paying them as part of what we're paying them, or hiring a consultant to lead that process. And that's debatable. Some people say, hey, we don't need a consultant to do it, but it takes a long time. It's a lot of work. So I think that's probably a conversation for another day, but it's absolutely something we need to do. So we should add that up to our list of future agenda items for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other concerns that jumped out at you, Maureen? And then Dave, I'll hand it to you. No, Steve, anything else other than what you mentioned that jumped out at you for the EDC to consider while they take it away?
No, I think that if we take a look at some of the wording on that, Brett, as you had mentioned, latest master plan, that may be something that you may want to include. I've looked at our master plan. I'm not sure how much it really speaks to business opportunities in that. I've always looked at it really as it's very definitive how we do business, more so as what opportunities we were looking to encourage to come to town.
Right.
I'll have to reread it. So I'm not sure that, some of this, but we may be splitting hairs. But again, I think it's something that we should, perhaps come up with a rough draft on our own and maybe compare notes. I'm not sure what you think is the best way to proceed.
Yeah, I would definitely think we should work from the draft that someone's created, as opposed to coming up with something totally new. That's just my 2 cents from sort of a document iteration perspective. We can mark it up as much as we want. So why don't we, if there's not other feedback, Dave, why don't you respond to what we've talked about, and then we'll work offline to come up with a new revision based on this feedback that we can look at and finalize in the next meeting. And probably at that next meeting, we'll also have all the applications to review to fill out the board. So at the end of the next meeting, hopefully we can have a built out board, we can have a finalized, approved new charge, and then sort of the EDC can get going again.
Yeah, so I pretty much agree with everything you guys have said. I'm fine with including the master plan as long as we use the latest master plan. So obviously if there's an update, you'll notice on one or two of them we had and subsequent studies built in there. So if something does come up in the next year or two, we don't have to kind of revise it. It's covered under there. I actually agree with what Steve's saying about putting the whole town first. I numbered them only because that's how we discuss them and it makes it easier for discussion. I don't believe like that's an order of priority. But I do think it is a full town committee, so we should have that as the top one there. And then the only thing on removing the planner bullet or leaving that in, I guess that was just, forward thinking into the future. So if I'm not privy, or the EDC is not privy to the conversations you guys have been having about when that position will be filled. We did see it had been posted. But if that's something that the town's not going to really explore for a while, I'm fine pulling that from now, because we won't actually be able to work on it if that position isn't filled. And the EDC doesn't believe that the planner like works for the EDC or whatnot. They're just more of our technical assistants in that role. And I think at one point we had called it a town planner / economic development coordinator type role. So that's kind of how we saw that involvement. But overall, I agree with all the comments coming from the board, and I think we can probably offline clean it up. And it'd be great if next meeting we have a full board with a charge and we're ready to go.
Awesome. Okay, I think we can do that. Any final closing thoughts on this, Steve or Maureen? That sounds like a good plan. Okay, great.
No, nothing else at this point.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate all of the feedback and engagement and work that everybody in the EDC has been doing, and I know you've been facilitating a lot of it, so thanks for that, as always. Derek, do you want to talk a little bit about the intermunicipal agreement with Northbridge?
I'm happy to do that. Did you, since Mr. Goodman and Mr. Rushford are here, did you want to go to the public hearing?
Yep.
I just don't want to hold them up. We don't have to.
Yes. Let me just bear with me one sec. Do I read the legal notice, Sandy, or is there some specific language I need? So just read the notice. So notice is hereby given under Chapter 138, Section 15A of the Mass General Law that a public hearing is going to be held virtually today, September 22nd, starting at 7:05 p.m. on the application of Rushford & Sons Brewhouse, LLC, 8 Grove Street, Upton, Mass. for an on-premises Farmers Series pouring permit. The description of the premises is as follows: a single floor, 2,100 square foot, 1,500 square foot of tap room, 600 square foot brewery manufacturing area. And the official start time for this hearing is 7:46. So the hearing is now open. Mr. Goodman, Mr. Rushford, welcome. Thanks. I've seen a lot of the work you guys have been doing over there. You've been very busy. I like to see it. It looks good. I noticed some equipment in there. I saw some sheetrock and some beer brewing equipment. So it's looking good over there. So thanks. Welcome. Nice to meet you. And why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about your story?
Well, thank you very much, by the way, and nice to meet you. And anytime you're in the neighborhood, want to pop your head in, don't be with me. Make sure you're masked up, but don't be a stranger, of course. Great. So we are as described in the notice, we are interested in opening, well, right now, our brewery. The plan is to start, again, permitting, start curbside sales in December, and with a plan of opening the full tap room and doing the full interior and exterior renovations by late, of course, to the downtown business district guidelines, by late spring, early summer 2021, health and safety conditions permitting.
No, that's great. That's great. Good. How did your conversation with the planning board go?
It went. They want to send out the site plan for peer review, which is procedure, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So yeah, that's up to them, I suppose.
Okay. Great. Did they mention what peers they were referring to?
No, I think they had concern about impact on traffic, impact on character of the neighborhood, and waste disposal, which none of those, I mean, again, it's not my decision to make and not my policies, but none of those should be an issue, but they wanted to send it out for review.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Good. Was that the first time that you talked to the planning board?
Third or fourth time.
Third or fourth time. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Okay, so I don't know that necessarily affects our conversation here. I don't have other questions that wouldn't be covered by the planning board, so I don't think, I guess the only thing is there a capacity or a number of people that would be listed, Sandy, on the application for the liquor license?
Oh, Sandy, you're still muted.
She's working on it. There you go.
That would be determined by code, the capacity.
Gotcha. Okay,
And
so
the
we don't need
parking.
to know that. Is there any other information that we would know for that other than what's listed here?
Hours of operation you can determine.
Yeah. Okay.
Days of operation, days and hours, and that's not listed on the application.
Gotcha.
We
What do you
haven't-
guys think?
We haven't finalized that. Right now, we are thinking about, and of course, we are certainly open to any input that you guys have or any requirements. Likely being closed one weekday, either Tuesday or Wednesday. Being open generally for curbside sales. Thursday, something like, and again, Mike, you can chime in if I'm wrong here. Something like Tuesday from 2 to 9. Friday from 2 to 9, Saturday from 9 to 9, Sunday from 11 to 5, Monday from 2 to 9, something to that effect. Again, subject to change, but that general time frame. Mike, do I have that right off the top of my head?
Yeah, just generally it'd be like afternoon to early evening. It's not going to be anything where we're going to be open to all hours of the night, disrupting, neighborhoods or anything. It's more of a low key thing, like 10 o'clock maybe on a Saturday, but everything else is like 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got young kids to get home too anyway, so.
All the particulars can be listed on the license. Should you issue an alcohol license,
Yeah.
you can mark all those particulars on the license itself.
Yeah.
This is just the application to have a license at that premise.
At that location.
Yes.
Got it. So this isn't the application for the actual license. This is issuing the ability for that address to apply for a liquor license.
Right. And then, yes.
Fascinating. Okay. Steve, Maureen, questions?
I was just going to throw out something while you're along that same vein, Brett, is say hours of operation. Well, in the short run, if you're going to operate, again, as curbside pickup, the hours of operation may be a little bit different than what they may be if you were going to operate as a tap room. So maybe, I don't know if we have the ability to differentiate, let's say on the big license, again, 6 months down the road, you may want to expand your hours versus in the short run, you may have shorter hours. But I guess I have a question, as far as that, what your thoughts are. Would those hours stay basically the same once you start operating as a tap room, or do you see it pretty much following the same type of hours that you're going to apply for right now?
I would see us roughly being the same type of hours. I mean, one thing that I would maybe want to consider is maybe saying open till 10 o'clock, just so if we do want to be open till 10 o'clock, we have that ability, but we have no plans to be open late or be, a real loud kind of bar or performance venue. We always had the idea of being more low key. And actually, to be perfectly honest, we'll probably run shorter hours than that for curbside. Those hours really were more considered for tap room. I don't know how late we're going to be there doing curbside.
So this is a question for Sandy. Would they be able to come back to amend the license or amend the hours at any time?
Yes, they would be, and it would have to go through the
ABCC? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Just a couple of quick procedural things. Sometimes maybe I'll appear to be a bore to you two gentlemen, but I like to just ask some kind of general questions because there's people listening in, and it's kind of a chance for you also to talk about, again, not only hours of operation, but a question that I would have is, say, products. Would you have, a single brew, or do you have multiple brews? And then talking about parking, do you have a set amount of parking spaces that you have right now allocated for curbside? And then again, looking down the road, what does that look like in 6 or 8 months? Do you have a designated number like 10 spots, 20 spots, whatever that may be?
Of course. Well, first of all, careful asking me about the beer. I don't know how late you guys want to be on the meeting because I will talk until you shut me off. To answer quickly, to go to the parking question, because that's the easy question. We have 14 spots allocated, one of those spots being ADA handicap accessible. And also by our understanding, and again, saying it's a layman understanding of the code is charitable, but by our understanding of the downtown business district code, overflow parking can in theory go to the parking lot next door, should it be available. In terms of the beers, right now we plan on opening the doors with 6 core products. To go again pretty quick in the interest of brevity, because I can be very not quick about this. We have our Bee's Knees, which is a honey blonde, very good, light, crisp. We have our Tradition, which is a traditional dry Irish stout. Think Guinness, except carbonated, not nitrous. We have our It's a Trappist, which is a traditional Belgian Trappist style ale, which is very unique. We have our Gippa, which is a grapefruit IPA. It's our New England hazy style IPA offering. And we also have our Old Blighty, which is a ESB extra special bitter, which I think is special, but it's not very bitter at all. It's actually quite sweet and very good. We also have the Grizzly Bear, which is our brown and ironically our lightest offering, but very good. Very excited about that one too.
Great. Good stuff.
I tried to keep that quick. And by the way, once we get open and established, we're going to have all sorts of seasonal and weird stuff too. That's going to be really fun. Very excited about it.
That was a perfect elevator pitch. I love it. So that's good for people to know. We can spread the word.
Please do.
Absolutely. So I'm great. I'm super excited about this kind of business in that kind of a location. It's a great part of our economic development plan, right? We just spent a long time talking about an economic development in town and bringing in small craft businesses of all sorts. This is clearly one of those. So, I personally couldn't be more excited or supportive of what you guys are doing. So Maureen, Steve, barring any questions or dissent, I'll entertain a motion.
I have no other questions. In the motion, Sandy, do you have, or should we list the hours in the motion? How did you want to handle that?
Right.
Derek, do you have a preference on how we motion this?
Yeah, I would definitely say that you should have the hours in the motion.
And then that would be put on the application. On the bottom of the application, you'll see it says additional remarks or conditions. So you can make put anything there you'd like.
To the chair, I just have a piece of information.
Hold please. I think we're good for now. We'll just have some questions. So we can just add that, right, Sandy, into that section on that page.
Yes, the additional remarks or conditions. You may want to include it in your. It didn't come on the application, but you can add it.
So just remind us of the hours you guys were looking for, Joan, because I think we don't need to do the days of the week, but I think just the hours, right? I don't know, Steve, if that's.
I know he mentioned one day during the week they would close. So do you want to do like just hypothetically Thursday through Tuesday from blank to blank? Mr. Goodman, if you could run those hours by us one more time, and then I guess we can figure out what's the best way to motion this.
I think it was.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it was. It would be Wednesday through Monday.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Tuesday or Wednesday that they were planning on closing.
Could you say 6 days if would that make it easier? Or did you want particular days?
Mr. Goodman, are you sure of the day that you plan on closing? I guess that would be a question.
No, we aren't. Again, if we need to commit to hours now, we're happy to do it, but I think it's really good. for us, we really wanted to kick that can down the road as absolutely far as we could, so we could really, judge customer demands and when people want to come pick up beer, and also kind of schedule it that way. So again, we're happy to commit to whatever we need to, but we would prefer to keep it as flexible as possible. If that's I think I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but
we can put something in here. It sounds like, Brian, that the town manager would like us to include days and hours. So why don't we put a placeholder in here that you tell us to put in here? You mentioned 10 o'clock on Fridays or Saturdays. I'm not sure which or both. And then whether or not you wanted Tuesday as your off day or Wednesday as your off day. So
why don't we list Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Let's add Friday, 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock as well.
Actually, Brian, I noticed in the chat there's a notice of that Wednesday is AA night at the church, and someone's requesting that from a community interest perspective.
Right. Yep.
So we may want to take that into consideration.
Absolutely. So why don't we say Wednesday? That's as good a reason as anything to say Wednesday as our close day. A very good reason. So can we say weekdays 2 to 10, Saturday 9 to 10, and Sunday 11 to 5? And I can say that slower if I need to. I said that quick.
So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. If you could give me those hours, we can motion this correctly. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you want to say 2 till 10 p.m., is that right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, now let's talk about Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, Saturday, let's see, opening. Sorry, guys, opening at 9 might be a little early for an alcohol establishment. Maybe you say 10 to 10 on Saturday. And 11 to 5 on Sunday.
I guess the only question I would have, Derek or Sandy, maybe you can answer this. Does the state have restricted hours on Sundays as it stands right now? 11 to 5 should definitely be a legal window of time, correct?
It is.
Yes.
With the ABCC.
So most package stores open at 10 a.m. on Sundays. And to the chat comment, there is a package store that's open on Wednesday evening across the street from the church. Just so everybody's clear what's happening in the neighborhood.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have those hours if you want that motion in that way. Maureen, did you have any problem with those hours?
No, if that's amenable to the applicants.
Good. I think we're good.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Nope, we're good. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the liquor license application for Rushford and Sons for the operating hours Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 2 p.m. till 10 p.m., Saturday from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m., and Sunday from 11 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Sunday. And the motion is pursuant to approval of the ABCC and approval of the Upton Planning Board. Stephen Mattellian, aye.
Maureen Donnell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action, Sandy. Thank you. Great work. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and hope to see you soon.
See you
All
soon.
right, good luck, gentlemen.
See you later.
Everyone,
good.
take care. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
You as well.
All right. So the conservation agent IMA, Derek.
Just one more point of order. Can we just close the hearing before we go to the AMA?
Yes.
Just need a motion from
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. Steve, Maureen, just motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing at, I say, 8:03.
Second the motion, Stephen Metellian, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye, unanimous action. Thank you, Derek.
Okay, so for the IMA, we talked about this as we went through the budget process for FY21. This intermunicipal agreement is with the town of Northbridge for the conservation agent. As you all can recall, the conservation agent was working for both towns for a total of 19 hours per week, 8 hours for the town of Northbridge, 11 hours for the town of Upton. This IMA represents an increase in those hours to 30 hours per week. The time will be split 15 hours per week for each town. And we have an agreement with the town of Northbridge that, certainly if there's a major development happening in Northbridge and the agent has to spend more time that week in Northbridge, he can choose to change his schedule based upon his workflow, and in turn would do the same for the town of Upton. So the town of Northbridge will reimburse the town of Upton approximately a little north of $22,000 annually to cover the agent's salary and benefits. At this time, the agent does not take medical benefits, but if he was to choose so, the town of Northbridge would cover 50% of those costs as well. And lastly, this is a 3-year intermunicipal agreement, effective July 1st, 2020.
Great. And are there other ways in which this is different than previous contracts or agreements?
As far as the scope of services, no, the scope of services is exactly the same. This is mostly has to do with the change in hours that we're asking him to work.
Mm-hmm. And what is the cost difference?
The cost difference, I'd have to do the math on the cost difference. Give me a second here.
I just know Steve's going to ask, so I'm asking on his behalf. Exactly. He's already got it figured. I should have just asked you, Steve.
I think
it's approximately $16,000. Approximately $16,000 difference between the two towns. It's a less of a cost to the town of Upton. Remember, we're going from 11 hours to 15 hours. The town of Northbridge is going from 8 hours to 15 hours. And keep in mind that when you were to look at the town's budget, off the top of my head, the tax levy contribution to this position is approximately only $13,000 on the town side for this position.
Great. I don't have any questions. Steve, Maureen?
Just one quick one, Derek. You had mentioned the 22,000 or 22,500. That would always be the minimum that Northbridge would contribute. If he works more hours for Northbridge, then their contribution would just go up accordingly, but they would take a minimum of that amount of dollars.
Right, so we will bill them quarterly for a minimum of 15 hours per week. And to your point, if he were to exceed those hours, that community, either one of the two communities, would have to pick up the excess of those hours.
Okay, I have nothing else.
Maureen, anything? All right. Take a motion, please.
I move that we approve the intermunicipal agreement for the conservation agent services between the towns of Northbridge and Upton. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I second the motion. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. So next on the list, we have the special town meeting warrant. My intent for today is not to go through the warrant in detail, more to give the public a quick preview of what's there, and for the board to consider each of these articles, think about them, reflect on them, and then we'll come back and have a more in-depth discussion about each of these. But as soon as we had these articles, I wanted to at least get them out there, get them up in this meeting so people could see them, to make sure we had maximum transparency and time for folks to digest and give us any feedback. So Derek, if you wouldn't mind, would you just kind of give us the very high level overview of these again? I don't want to spend a lot of time debating these right now. I think we should do that in a future meeting. If Steve and Maureen, if you guys are okay with just sort of letting Derek present these, and then we'll come back to it in a future meeting.
Sure. Okay. So there are 5 articles that have been submitted. 3 of the 5 articles from the Community Preservation Committee. The first article, though, has been submitted by the Economic Development Committee. This article is a request for town to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire parcels in the town center. So I guess it's tough to explain because there hasn't been a decision as to exactly which parcel or parcels. There are 3 parcels that are in question. As of right now, there is the vacant parking lot across from the Northern Esteem building. There is the vacant open space land that runs alongside of Warren Street, and then there's a parcel of land across from the VFW that connects to Heritage Park. So this article is a request to acquire 1 or more of those parcels. Moving on to Article 2A, this is a request for $19,000. This was submitted by the Land Stewardship Committee for $19,000 to install a 4-inch water main on Mechanic Street running into the community garden. As you can recall, this was an issue that came up this past summer. Some folks from that work over at the community garden on Mechanic Street were hoping that we could have running water. And so this is a request to install that running water. Article 2B, this one is the one that I would say is really the only required article at this time. This is to authorize the payment of this year's debt payment of the town hall renovation. So this is paid primarily through community preservation dollars. The total payment this year is $296,000 or thereabouts. Article 2C is again submitted by, I believe it's the Open Space Committee. This is a request to use CPC dollars to acquire 66 acres of land off of East Street, owned by the Kelly family, at a total cost of $320,000. And then Article 3 is the last article. Don't have a total value to this article as of yet. This is to pay the union firefighters retroactive pay going back to FY20 and a portion of FY21. So my hope is that we will finalize a collective bargaining agreement. They worked for the fiscal year 20 with no agreement in place, which is why if we were to sign this agreement, we would owe the retro pay going back to FY20. This would be for a 5-year collective bargaining agreement at the town, the union in the town. Pending any questions, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. That's great. Steve or Maureen, any sort of clarifying questions that you have on these things? I just wanted to sort of get it out there, particularly the first article, because anytime we talk about acquiring new land, I know that there's a lot of focus and discussion that needs to happen around that. So that was primarily why I wanted to put this out there to the community for their review and input via each of us. The other three I think are pretty straightforward, but any clarifying questions that either of you have at this point? No?
I do have some. Number one, frankly, is far too ambiguous to even be on a draft warrant. I am unaware really of any time that any land has been purchased or proposed to be purchased without going through the Board of Selectmen first. You know, with respect to 6 Main Street, obviously we initiated that through the BOS. But here we have a situation where this is just dropped on the Board of Selectmen in a draft warrant. You know, we have always some sort of foresight as far as what open space is looking at, or conservation is looking at for properties, or they've asked us to, you know, letter of support, let's just say, if they're looking to apply for grants to purchase land, open space land in town. But here's a situation, we don't even see what the properties are. We've had no prior discussion to it. So, you know, I don't like it at all. I just feel like, why as a board member should I be finding out about this right now in a draft warrant? You know, this is something we need a few months of wind up on this. We don't know what the dollars are. We don't know what the parcels look like. That should be scratched, in my opinion, should be scratched immediately.
So in the EDC's defense, I know that they were under the wire because we're asking them to reorganize and come up with a new charge and find new people, and they're transitioning from the RFP committee to the EDC. So there's a lot of activity going on there. And I think, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, they sort of just threw this in as a placeholder. They don't even necessarily, I don't even know that they've decided sort of or talked amongst themselves exactly which of the three, or if any of the three, are sort of more than even the information we have. So my understanding, Derek, was that they just threw this in there as a placeholder, knowing that they would need to have these conversations and socialize this a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this came up at their last meeting, and they, you know, I think the sentiment was, at least for the majority of the group, was that, you know, they're going to be actively pursuing the town center redevelopment, and there were a number of parcels that were identified through the town center visioning project. These are 3 of the parcels. And so again, you know, there was a lot of conversation of not having town meeting. And so this, I believe, was their best effort as having a placeholder so that they can go ahead further explore with the Board of Selectmen those parcels and with the community as to whether or not this is, if the timing is right to acquire one or all these parcels.
Okay. Great. Any other initial questions? Okay, great. Next on the agenda is the town meeting quorum. Derek, do you want to walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this up this evening because if the board so chooses, this is something that we should probably take action at the next Board of Selectmen meeting scheduled for October 6th. And given the warrant we just reviewed, which is a very small warrant, the town has, as you all know, a quorum of 40 individuals. And so given everything that's going on with COVID, flu season is upon us, and some of the, I think, the confusion that those 2 viruses are going to create, I would suspect that we're going to have a very low turnout at town meeting on November 10th. And so there's emergency regulations that allow for municipalities to lower their quorum to be no lower than 10% of the existing quorum. So in our case, it could go down to no less than 4 individuals. So I'm bringing this up because there's a process we have to follow. One of those, a couple of those items that you need to be aware of is we need to talk to the moderator and get agreement with him as well as to whether or not we should lower the quorum count. And then if we would also have to post this type of vote 7 days in advance of the day of the vote. So as you all know, open meeting law requires us to have to post our agenda is 48 hours in advance. This type of vote requires a 7-day posting in advance. So we got to do a little bit of pre-thinking on this one. And so we also have to execute the warrant. Has to be posted 14 days in advance of town meeting. So that would put us no later than the third week of October to execute the warrant. So in my mind, so we're not rubbing up against dates, it may be best that we consider this, if you so choose, at the October 6th meeting.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would. I mean, I guess I'll just sort of share my perspective, which is I would be very concerned about having a town meeting with less than 40 people in it, making any kind of material decision. That said, given that there is the third article there that we have to execute to pay a bill, I think, I think clearly we need to do that. So we can't jeopardize sort of the town's financial standing by not having a quorum required to at least pay that bill. So I don't know if we can come to some agreement or go through some process where we formalize the notion of, we'll lower the quorum so that we can address this third item and not put ourselves into jeopardy, but we're not going to act on any other articles, if we don't have at least, I would just say 40 people, frankly, but I don't. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know, Steve, Maureen, sort of what your initial reactions are, what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I think it's a low count for a quorum, and no, I'm not particularly thrilled about having a special town meeting, but there is that payment that's due and is required. There was a comment on the chat center, can you have a ballot question? No, you cannot have a ballot question to pay to do an unpaid bill. This is an authorization that is given every year through the budget process, and it can't be raised or anywhere. I thought it could be raised on page 2 of the recap. It can't. You have to do it because it's the CPA. If it was general fund, you could raise it on the recap, but it's not, and it's required to be paid.
And I know Derek and Kenny, you guys worked with the Department of Revenue and the bank to try to find any way that we could put this off, because frankly, right, the original intention was to not have a fall town meeting at all. And then we realized that this bill needed to be paid. And so I know you guys did a lot of work trying to find ways that would alleviate us having to go through this process, but weren't able to. So this is where we are. But any thoughts on the quorum or the number of people, Maureen or Steve?
I put a question, a recommendation to increase the quorum in Hopkinton. They wanted to shoot me at the end of it because I made it 100 and they couldn't get 100. So that's up to you guys.
Well, no, actually, it's up to you and Steve and I.
Yeah, I'm thinking at this point in time, it's tough. It's a little too early to tell, but I would probably think that we could always get 40 people, so we just stay with 40 people. And getting back to both of your previous comments, yeah, unfortunately, that is a bill we have to pay. We absolutely want to pay it anyways, regarding the town hall general obligation for $296,000, and it takes a vote of a governing body, so that's our town meeting.
Well, I guess my fear would be if 38 people show up to the meeting and we can't vote to pay that bill.
Then you would be penalized immensely by not making your obligation, and not only by the banks, but by the state.
Well, that's exactly the point, which is why I think we should, that's why I think we're having the conversation around, do we, for this meeting in this special circumstance, lower the quorum requirement, and it may be a moot point, right? Hopefully 100 people or 200 people show up. But given what's on the agenda, I doubt that many will. So if it's just this one thing, do we lower the quorum to say, 10 people, but only for this one issue, And if, even if we left the warrant as it is, we wouldn't vote on, my view would be that we wouldn't take action on any of the other 3 articles unless we had the quorum of 40. So I don't know if there's a way to formally do that, but I certainly wouldn't be comfortable taking a vote on anything other than that 3rd article, that sort of required article with less than 40 people. But I would hate to have 38 people show up and put ourselves in a financial, burden to.
My recommendation would be just have the 1 article and wait for the annual town meeting for the rest.
But if we have the 1 article, we still have to have the 40 people, Maureen. So it's not.
No, you would not if you reduce it to, am I correct, Eric? The state is allowing, if you post within the 7 days, that we only need 10% of the 40. So
Yes,
you'd only need 4 people, and we're on the stage, we could vote it.
That's mainly what we're talking about is lowering the quorum, Maureen and Steve. That's the discussion we're having.
Well, I think what Maureen's saying, and it's a good idea, is you do not include the other articles. So you have a 1 question town meeting. So we have a 1 question town meeting, which is simply to address that $296,000 bill. 1 question only. And then we just lower the quorum. I would certainly be in favor of that because,
I got you.
Again, if those questions are on the warrant, we're going to open ourselves up to people thinking we're up to some mischievous,
No, I totally hear you, and that's why we're having the conversation. So, Derek, what do you want to say?
The only thing I want to add, because I think it makes logical sense to just focus on the business at hand, and the things that we have to accomplish. The last article, Article 3, if you chose not to put that article on the warrant, it would force the union members to have to wait until May to receive their retro pay and any other benefits they receive through the CBA. And again, that Article 3 is an administrative article. It falls in the same bucket as the CPC town hall debt payment article.
That I agree with Derek. It would fall in the same category as the debt service payment because we have a contract that we cannot renege on. So you would have a 2-article town meeting, but that's to settle the business of the town.
Mm-hmm.
I think the rest of the articles could wait until annual town meeting where you have more of a quorum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Derek, at this point in time, has that contract been ratified by the firefighters union?
They have agreed on every a piece of the collective bargaining agreement. The only thing I'm waiting for them to review and sign, one of the agreements that they made was to allow the town to do drug testing. And so we had to create a drug testing policy. So they are reviewing that drug testing policy as we speak. Once they have agreement on the policy itself, then they will go ahead and have that collective bargaining agreement ratified by the union members. So my suspicion, they're going to want to get that done in the next couple of weeks to be prepared for the November 10th town meeting.
So I wasn't understanding what you were saying, Maureen, so I apologize. We're sort of crossing ideas, but I totally agree. Like if we just strip out the things that we wouldn't be comfortable with voting on with less than the 40, then it's a moot point. So we basically say, these are the articles that need to be voted on to conduct the town's business, and we're going to reduce the quorum. And I mean, obviously, if people are interested, they can show up, but basically, don't. I mean, they're really non-negotiable, so don't come. I mean, I didn't say that, but you know what I mean. It's not going to be a very interesting town meeting. Let's just put it that way.
And I agree, we should take care of the business of the town and wait for the annual town meeting articles to go to annual town meeting.
Yeah. Steve, does that make sense to you? Again, we don't have to make a final decision till the 6th, but I think you would agree with that, right, Steve? I think we're there.
Yeah. Again, I don't have an issue. I agree with all of that. We know we have to take care of those things. The only reason I asked the question to Derek is if the contract isn't actually formalized, then again, we could just keep it as simple as a one article warrant. But certainly it's money that is owed, so we need to address it. If we don't, the later we address it, we're going to probably owe some interest on the money on that contract. So we're better off. It's in our best interest to resolve it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So that all makes good sense to me.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay. Love it. All right. So I think we're on the same page there. Derek, any questions about that or clarification, or does that give you what you need for now?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm assuming based upon this conversation, we are going to add as an agenda item on October 6th, a vote to lower the quorum. We will speak directly with the town moderator in advance and ask him to join that conversation so we can get agreement by him as well.
Good. Okay, great. Thank you. Any recognition that folks wanted to share?
I have nothing.
Okay. Town manager report.
Okay, I have a number of things, so I'm going to try to go through them really quickly. The first thing I want to start off is personnel. So personnel, especially in the police department side this past year, has been very active. We were able to promote Officer Mansfield to one of the vacant sergeant positions. That's effective this week. So congratulations to now Sergeant Mansfield for his new role, his new supervisor role. In addition to that, we are in the process of bringing on 2 new police officers. Once these 2 new police officers are on board, for the first time in 2 years, the police department will be at full complement. In addition to that, we had appointed a new firefighter paramedic a little over a month ago, and we're in the process right now of recruiting and interviewing the last vacancy for a full-time firefighter paramedic. So I'm kind of coupling these all together because we'd like to think about, if we could, maybe holding on October 20th, maybe at 6 p.m., an hour before a Board of Selectmen meeting, an opportunity where we can publicly congratulate them all. I think we have 4 officers, 2 firefighters, and 2 sergeants. So it would be a large gathering to recognize all of those individuals who've come on board in the past 6 months. So if you'd like, we can organize something like that. We originally had said maybe we do it in the town common, weather permitting. If not, we'd have to take it indoors inside the large meeting room at town hall. Moving on.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked. I mean, absolutely. Let's do that. I know we all agree. So let's make it happen.
Okay, so we will plan that for 6 p.m. I think that gives us plenty of time, even though we have a lot of offices, on October 20th. So we'll start planning for that now. In addition, the town planner came up a couple of times tonight, and as we talked about at town meeting, that we would not be recruiting a town planner. And just so we're clear, that the position that was approved by the personnel board, the position that was discussed at during the budget process and deliberations this past spring, the title is Economic Development Coordinator with a town planner. So it's a part-time position. I think we had budgeted $40,000 for that part-time position. The town of Boylston had expressed an interest back in January to partner with the town of Upton. So they had reached out to us probably about 30 days ago and asked if we were still interested in that. I think that what they had to try to do, they had tried to do it on their own, hire their own part-time town planner. And what they realized was that the professional experience and certified town planners that are out there were all seeking full-time work. So that gave us an opportunity to partner with the town of Boylston. So we're in the process of going through a recruitment process, and hopefully we find somebody that we think is uniquely qualified to serve both towns. Moving on from personnel, the Fowler Street Bridge continues to make progress. The precast structures are in place. as of last week. The wing walls are going up this week and next week. And then once those are finished, they're going to start installing the water main. Dennis Westgate is predicting that this will be done no later than the end of October to have that bridge fully repaired. And he did say that the engineering company did such a great job engineering that they over-engineered it, and he thinks this thing's going to last well over 100 years, the way they engineered this bridge. So looking forward to the completion of that project. You will notice.
Sorry, but we love once in 100-year projects. That's infrastructure.
Well, wouldn't that be great? You know, we wouldn't have to build a school once for every 100 years. If you go to Hartford Ave South, you will see that they've raised the structures this past week, and that roadway is going to have its final top this coming week. So I know there's a lot of folks that live in that neighborhood that have waited a long time to have that road fully final and fully complete. So that should take place this week as well. Selectman Simons had brought up there was a concern about the new Mendon Street Railroad crossing. The railroad had done some work over there to upgrade that crossing. However, when they had done the repair, they didn't meet the grade that they should have, and so there's now a hump with a kind of a sag during the departure of that crossing. Dennis Westgate went out there with the railroad folks and found that it needs to be remedied. So they are going to be repairing that in the next couple of weeks. So if you talk to folks that are driving down that road, when they cross the railroad crossing, tell them to go slow. If not, they may bottom out. But again, that will be repaired in the next few weeks. As far as the library reopened today. The library trustees had voted to reopen it effective today. From what I understand, the computers are not in use. They do not allow seating. Certainly, there's no programs in place, and so it's mostly open for folks from the general public to come in, browse the shelving, and then maybe choose a book and go home. But they do think that maybe over time they'll be able to expand their offerings. Just as a reminder, Heritage Day is this coming Saturday. It's going to be held on the town common from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Board of Health has been working with the coordinators of Heritage Day to make sure that they meet all social distancing requirements and face coverings as well. Saying on that topic, we've been told as of today that the Board of Health did receive flu vaccine. They are happy to vaccinate any individual who would like to get a free flu vaccine. We do hope that we're going to have a clinic scheduled at the senior center in the next week or so to make sure that we go to those high-risk populations and give them the protection that they need as we head into flu season. Just as a reminder, as you all may recall, back in November of 2019, there was the plastic bag and styrofoam ban that was passed by town meeting. That was supposed to be effective July 1st, 2020, but as you all remember, the governor had suspended all plastic bag bans throughout the Commonwealth during the early months of COVID. He has since lifted that. So I've been working with the Board of Health. We are going to be issuing letters to let businesses know that the plastic bag and styrofoam ban will take place. Given everything that's going on, we're going to give them until January for us to comply. Some really positive news. Our finance department continues to make strong headway. As predicted, they are scheduling a refinancing of the town hall debt. And right now, with the low interest rates, we are projected to refinance and save the town over $350,000 with the refinancing. So the refinance, the meeting will take place with the bond rating agencies. I think it's in early October, and then our bank will go out to refinance towards the end of the month. So $350,000 is what we're projecting. Could be a little bit north or south of that, but I'll keep everybody posted once that is complete. So a lot of strong work by our finance department. And then e-permitting, I continue to talk about this. Kelly and Code have been working very closely, again, to get a e-permitting program with code enforcement to be up and running as quickly as possible. So right now we're projecting to have all of our code permits live effective October 1st. And then we'll be working with the Board of Health and the Fire Department on their e-permitting software as well. So again, this moves us more towards a virtual platform, and it's something that I know that the staff at the Code Department are really looking forward to. The Disability Commission held a meeting last week, and they have completed their first pass for the RFP so that we can go out to bid for a contractor to help us with our transition plan. So I continue to work with the chairperson of that committee so that in the next couple of weeks we hope to advertise and then seek the most qualified contractor to work with the Disability Commission on drafting the transition plan. And then lastly, I just wanted to announce that the town did receive $20,000 grant through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. And Mike Penko, as you all remember, he came before the board, I want to say about 6 months ago. He described the program to the board. He asked for a letter of support. We provided that to him. He then went ahead and worked with the various departments to get their letters of support. And he was the key author behind that application. So great work to Mike and the committee that he was working on with that. So now we have $20,000. We'll use that money to hire a contractor so we can go through an evaluation process to look at our dams and other vulnerabilities as it relates to climate change. So again, more grant money coming this way to the town. Once that plan is complete, we can then go ahead and seek implementation or project dollars, what they call it. And like, for example, the town of Millbury got almost $1 million of project dollars to put towards climate change. So pending any questions, I'll turn my report back over to the chair.
That's great. Thank you, Derek. There are a couple of quick things. One, I was wondering if, how does it work with municipal debt? Do they do like a rate lock? Because I know rates are low now, but as we get into October, things can change. So I didn't know how that worked.
Yeah, so we follow the same rates that are out there. Rates, as you just suggested, are very low, and we're assuming, and the banks are telling us that they're going to continue to remain this low at least until the election. Which is why we're trying to go out by the end of October prior to the election.
Got it. Good. And then just recognition and appreciation for Mike Penko and all the work that he does for the town, but particularly with regard to this grant. So thank you for that, Mike. What other questions, Steve, Maureen, on the town manager report?
Just a couple quick questions, I guess. Derek, do you have any idea that would be a tremendous savings? And again, as you mentioned, Brett, I guess it falls into similar to a mortgage, I imagine. So it's almost like remortgaging town hall. So what is that rate dropping to? And where is it now? I mean, would it be at, say, 6% now, and we're going to get the money or borrow the rest of that balance for 3%? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was just reviewing the numbers earlier today. I can give you what we have and what we're going to. Just if you give me 1 second.
I was just curious. You don't have to dig it up right now. We can catch it next time if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. I'll take any other questions while.
And I guess the only other question or comment I was going to make, you had mentioned the promotion of Patrolman Mansfield to Sergeant Mansfield. Is it a good time to share the names of the two new police officers, or is it too early to do that?
We're still going through the vetting process, so I think it's a little too early to do that, but absolutely, as soon as they complete all their background checks and all their other requirements through the onboarding process, we'll be happy to share those names. But since I have the floor, I do have the answer for you regarding the rates. So our current rate ranges from 3 to 4%, and our new estimated rate would be 0.545% to 1.8%. So that would be the range in which we would be looking to get a refinance on.
Awesome.
That's great news.
Yeah, very good. Good stuff. See, that financial department's already paying for itself. I love it.
Great work.
Okay. Anything else on the town manager report?
No, nothing else.
Any discussion of upcoming meeting agenda other than what we've already talked about and discussed? Derek and I did talk about, just as a side note, getting together and having another discussion about sort of the next, 3 to 6 months of agendas. We sort of did that back in, I want to say June, for the summer months, and Steve, Maureen. So we'll probably revisit that conversation and just sort of look at the list, see if there's new things we want to add or prioritize, check some things off the list that we discussed, and make sure we're continuing to make progress on the stuff we identified. So we'll do that. Anything else for new business?
Yes, just one quick thing. Fire and EMS Association had asked me to kind of act as a liaison to just ask the board at a future meeting to consider in years past, they've always decorated with Christmas lights, the town common. This year, they actually would like to put up some small Christmas trees, approximately 20 trees, and then have families actually donate and decorate the trees themselves. So that's something, most likely one of the members of the association will probably be coming forward in the next meeting or two to do that. But just wanted to just put the board on notice that I had that correspondence, and that's something they would be looking to do. And again, I know the decorations is something they do every year, so this would be something a little different. So I think they'd be requesting town common use is what they'd be asking for. So,
yeah, I'm a big fan and advocate for decorating the town common during the holidays. I think it looks great. I think it, harkens back to a day when, that used to happen. I think whatever it was, 10 or 15 years ago, and probably for decades and decades before that. So I think it's a nice tradition. Something that we can, bring back to town. I think everybody would appreciate it. Everybody would enjoy it, particularly during these times when, there's not as much getting around and doing things as people would. It would be nice to have an attraction downtown like that. So I'm a huge fan.
I am also.
yeah, I thought it was a good idea, especially the year that we're coming off of. I think it would, add a little bit of life and spirit to the holidays.
I hope next year's better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, good.
Yeah, myself as well.
You should let them know, Steve. Obviously, you're talking to folks over there, but let them know that, at least from my perspective, if I don't know if they have funding or money or what have you, but, holiday decorations for the town, at least from my perspective, might fit into the beautification box in terms of if they need some funding or support from those trusts for the families that put that money away for the town's use. So, just a thought.
Okay, very good. I'll forward that along.
More lights are better.
Would Steve, you had mentioned that they wanted to use the town common. Would they be interested in 6 Main Street? Maybe scoping out both spaces, see which one would be better.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I will I'll forward that along. I don't know when their association meetings are. I'd asked, I said, as your plans kind of shore up and you have an idea, I said we will need kind of some sort of solid numbers, how many trees and whereabouts they'll be and those sort of things. So I don't want to presume that everybody's in favor, but that's something I'll put forward. If Brett and Maureen think that's good, I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
It is a great idea.
Love it. I don't want to compete with Rockefeller Center, but we could have a pretty good tree there. We could have a pretty good.
We'll need we'll need some families because it's really families that will need to step forward and their idea is for the families to kind of take ownership of that one particular tree and decorate it, to as nicely as they can. So that's their thought for now.
Awesome.
But good, very good.
That's just putting me in the spirit already. I love it. Thanks, Steve. That's a good one. We're ready for it. Any public comments? I did see, as a side note, there was a public comment about reopening the town hall and whether we were going to do that on a limited basis as the weather gets colder. So we'll take that offline, Derek, and you can update us in the next meeting, or we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else that folks had before we adjourn? All right. Great work, everyone. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Appreciate everybody's time and attention and work.
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Stephen Metellian, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you.
Bye.
Great. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Stay safe.